but that's what that event was really, really interesting. And just being in Sedona, it's such a beautiful place.
Yeah, and it is such a beautiful place. And it was also right before then, the government had released the document, and it was about the UAPs. And they were saying in this document, yes, in fact, there is something out there that we don't know what it is. And so they released this document during this time where people are so like pointed towards the pandemic or what's happening, not towards like UAPs or what the government's doing or talking about. So It's really interesting timing on the release of that.
Right.
A lot of people would be, like, oh my gosh, like the government finally said something. We've been pushing for disclosure for so long. And then, here's this document and yeah.
Very anticlimactic. Very anticlimactic. Anybody that was in the know or anybody that's been following this stuff or really paying attention were just, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. And then it did nothing. It didn't affect anybody, nobody. And even when last year, the big congressional hearing with David Grush and Ryan Graves and they were talking about the Tic Tac and the New York Times article. And we thought, whoa, we can look back to 2023 and go, wow, that was a huge step. 2021, like you said, those documents were released. But before that was 2017 with the New York Times article that came out on Thanksgiving, by the way. So nobody read that 2017 article until years later when all these people they refer to 2017 New York Times article. Now everybody knows about it and it's a huge deal. But when it actually happened, it was on Thanksgiving, and I'm sitting around telling my aunts and uncles, you have no idea what just happened. Like the biggest thing ever, like essentially some parts of the government, their mainstream media is actually talking about UFOs in the public, and they're not being shamed or ridiculed for it. But that all flew under the radar. If you remember NDAA Section 1031, that was passed on Christmas Eve. The Patriot Act was passed on Easter. So this is something that is over and over again. They release this stuff when nobody's paying attention, and even worse was the pandemic. So you're correct. But we've been on this kind of evolution for so long that, again, you have more congressional hearings, you have Senate hearings, the head of AARO, which was a few months back or less than a month ago, where the head of AARO was up in front of the Senate. And, we have a new head of AARO, so it seems like he's kind of being more forthright. But the former head of AARO was a real piece of work. That guy wasn't saying anything and discrediting all of these people's sightings and witnesses and calling it swamp gas again. So I want to get your opinion on where are we right now? Are all of these things a really big deal? Because to me, it feels like this is huge, but I don't think people understand how big it is. For 10 years from now, they're going to look back and go, 2023 was a big deal. The end of 2024 with all these UAP drone phenomenon, that was a big deal. It's just people didn't realize it yet.
Yeah, I think that where we are right now is a pretty big deal. I mean, we have a lot going on in the government. We have the push for the UAP transparency. So, we go from UFOs to UAPs, where they're actually saying that they can detect something, they can measure it or see it. And now we have this other thing coming up where they're kind of pushing drones. So there's like two different sides, like trying to pacify us, I think, to make us maybe not aware of what's going on above us. But then this other side, like really pushing for truth and disclosure. Of course, we have a new president that's coming in on Martin Luther King Day, January 20th. And so, yeah, it seems like a lot's going to happen. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen with the U.S. government. It sounds a little...
Let me ask you. So you said you kind of have two teams. You have groups right now like Tim Burchett and, Congresswoman Luna and some of these folks that, maybe we can say they're the good guys or the bad guys or whatever you want to say, but they're pushing for answers. They're being withheld access to these skiffs. They're being denied information. So it seems like you have a faction of the government that's really trying to push for disclosure. Who are these other folks? Are you allowed to talk about that? Can we speculate on, people want to, call them the deep state or whatever it is, but is it the military industrial complex? Is it, these kind of, where did all this money go? The Pentagon budgets. I mean, you're talking how many trillions of dollars that they can't find? What is it, like 3 trillion? Well, it's not that they can't find it. That money went somewhere, right? I mean, are we talking about somebody that may be developing super advanced technology that isn't necessarily the government, but is kind of like these aspects of maybe companies that are really connected in with these, kind of more secretive parts of what we can call the military? Or it's so hard, right? Because it could be so many things. But what do you guys think is happening, and who might those factions be? What are we up against here?
Yeah. I don't know if I would know for sure. Whatever those powers to be are, I think there's a lot of different layers to what's going on. There's a lot here that we don't see. There's other civilizations that have been here among us for millions of years. And like so much that's been hidden from the people of the world, from different parts of the government. So I don't know who's working with who, but I think there's a bigger war that's going on that we just aren't aware of. It's been happening, and we're just like, we have our cell phones, we're looking down, we're not looking up, we're not paying attention. We don't know what's going on in the government. Even people in the government don't know what's going on in other parts of the government. So
it's so big, it's so bloated, right? I mean, there's so many bureaucrats that fill up all these jobs. Like when you say the government's just people that we pay for their job, for them to have jobs. So the larger the government is, the more people you have that, you always hear, well, the government's so inefficient, they could never hide anything from anybody. Not true. I mean, compartmentalization, there's many, many cases where they've been able to keep things secret. And we've never found out about the church committee hearings on the CIA. I mean, they went on for 30 years with mind control studies and all of these weird experiments forever. Nobody knew about it. So don't tell me you can't have these programs exist. But, you mentioned off-world, not even off-world civilizations. One of my feelings is that there's civilizations, if you will, or, in these hearings you hear NIH, non-human, or NHI, non-human intelligence, whatever you want to call them. But there's been, I think, some kind of beings that have been here forever. Do you feel that, or it doesn't seem like they're coming from somewhere else? I feel like they've been here forever.
Yeah, I would say that I would know that there are other civilizations here that have been here. We don't see them. They don't really make themselves known. Slowly, they are making themselves known. We're sharing this planet, right? So if we're going to destroy this planet, that's destroying it not only for us, but everybody else that lives here. So I think the further we get along in our technology and wars, it's pretty awful, like what we're doing as humans and just how we treat each other. We have to work really hard just for kindness, like every day in the grocery store, the gas station, like your everyday life. Like people have to work really hard to be kind. And like 7 million years ago, it wasn't that way. Our human spirit and our human body together, they were together as one. And then there was a split. So kindness, compassion, and happiness split from us. So we're we're trying really hard to do this kindness thing, to do kindness. It's an actual thing. It's not just a thought. What we've been working with is different technologies, and you've experienced some of them. That would be kindness. We've had teas and gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
Those are ways that we can use this technology. It comes from the ancients, from the ancient time. But there's also technologies that we can actually build, like resonators or structures that can help us. But yeah, the violence and the war is definitely a problem on the planet. And if it's going to continue like that, I think something's going to happen to change that, because we're not the only ones here.
It does seem like they kind of show up when there's, whether it's the nuclear testing back in the 40s, Manhattan Project gets created. Next thing you know, you got Roswell. You had the incident in Brazil that predated Roswell. You have the incident in Italy, I think, which was like 1938. That was like the European. So it seems like they kind of show up maybe when, you know, are they checking us in some way? Because right now, I mean, whether you like it or not, the threat level for nuclear war at this point with Russia and China and what's going on in Ukraine and all over the world, there's a lot of people freaked out. I'm one of them. I try not to get concerned and have, you know, fear, but the timing is interesting where you hear this threat level's gone up, and now you're starting to see all these things pop up, not just the drones. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about some of these maybe other type of, whether they're plasma balls, because a lot of people have been making the connection online here recently is some videos where a gentleman was talking about plasmoid structures, and basically like at different frequencies, they'll emit different kind of shapes and geometry, but it's not just drones people are seeing, these plasma balls. Is there anything with maybe the technology that you've researched or studied that maybe can lend a little bit of information into what is going on with these things that we're seeing?
Yeah. Well, I think we're pretty primitive as far as like the technology goes that we have. Like what we have is pretty amazing. You know, we have cell phones and like all this equipment. We have cars and we've done all these things, but we're really far behind some of the other civilizations in the technology. As civilizations progress, like some of the other ones have technologies that are a lot smaller than what we have. Like we have a cell phone. Like what if that was just like a chip inside of us? It would look like telepathy. It would, look like these magical powers, but in fact it would just be, a technology that's so small that you just can't see it with your own eyes or can't detect it. Some of the research that we've been doing is sending balloons up into the high atmosphere to collect data. It's like, how do you see the things that you can't see? Like if we're on the earth, we don't look up that often. It's suggested in the teachings to look up because there's a lot going on above us. But, if something's up so far, we're not going to be able to see it with our eyes. We're limited. So we've been sending these balloons up, and they've sent at least probably more than 63 with different sensors on them. So cameras for video, audio. This research has been going on my teacher's been doing it for more than 40 years. So imagine how the technology has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like the old big like camcorder, like trying to send up on a balloon.
The weight alone of the technology, the lightweight tech that you have now with GoPros and no doubt. Now, how high are you allowed to, able to say how high are you able to get these balloons up?
They go up pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because of the cameras and different sensors too on them. It would be all the way around, so it could look up, it could look down, side to side, can capture images, videos, audios. There's some that have been sent up with more ways to detect like different waves, radio waves, and different magnetic anomalies that happen in our upper atmosphere. So that data has been collected, and we've been looking at that over the years, and we can see and detect things. Some things that my teacher had detected, 12, 15 years ago, the scientists are starting to see now. There's definitely something getting closer to our solar system that's been affecting solar system, our sun, our planet. We talk about global warming, and a lot of people think, oh, it's because we're using all these fossil fuels. It just think like, well, the humans think we're so powerful that we can cause this global warming. But, is that really us? The Earth has been warm before.
Sure.
But,
and
maybe
cold.
there's some.
And cold, and hot, and cold, and then hot again. And, I mean, it's constant cycles of, we couldn't live during the dinosaur times because it was so unbelievably hot. There were magma flows and volcanoes, and I mean, there was so much carbon dioxide in the air, but trees and plants were able to grow massively from those times. So, it's the Earth is in a rhythm. But yeah, I've kind of always wondered that. Methane from cows. As Bill Gates says, the cows are a real problem. The cows are, sending so much. It's like, really? Come on. Is it? I don't know. Is there climate? Yeah, the climate's changing, but it's always changed. So I'm with you.
We're the cows. I also heard the dinosaurs died from laughter, so I don't know how true that is.
I'd buy that before cows. Oh, man. So what is your guys' conclusion if you're able to talk about some of the things maybe that you've captured in terms of video and audio, and maybe could you help us kind of walk through or explain what some of that research is if you're able to?
Some of that research, yes. So it's pretty varied. So some of the information we've gotten are like radio waves, sound. We've got some videos and some pictures of things moving near the balloons. And with the larger array that was sent up, we'll send you a video of that one. That was collecting information on like gravitational waves and how that's affecting the Earth. And so through that, we were able to determine that there is something coming closer to our solar system that is affecting our sun, it's affecting other planets, it's affecting our Earth, affecting our climates. I don't know, like you're in Ohio, I'm in Maine. We've had like 70-degree days in November. It's like our weather is really different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like, it's just all over the place, very different. There's something that's definitely making that fluctuate that way. And so that's one thing that we've really been focused on studying.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that a little bit, because you hear about Nibiru, Planet X, the Black Sun, all of these things that people, Zachariah Sitchin, talks about Planet X and Nibiru and all these things from the Sumerian tablets. Could there actually be some type of planetoid that's large? Is it a black hole potentially? Is it another sun potentially? Is it another planet that's really large and has this huge, big giant path around its own orbit that comes back every now and then? Is there any hypothesis of what that could be? Because you do hear about this. This isn't the first time I've heard about this. So I'm just curious about maybe what could be causing that, or what that could be.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's pretty massive. So I've heard about the Nibiru and some of those stories. I've heard, maybe there's another sun behind our sun that we can't see. This is much, I don't know if it'd be bigger, but denser, much bigger, I guess. I'm kidding, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Much bigger and denser. Some things that we've been researching are like magnetars. I don't know. There's a lot of information on magnetars people are kind of putting online right now, studying them, because like a magnetar is like super, super, super dense. It's like so dense. If it comes, so I don't know how close, but if it comes close to our Earth, even if we couldn't see it, the magnetic field would be so intense that it would blow out our cell phones, it would blow out all our electronics. And if it was close enough or strong enough, it could tear apart the entire Earth. Like, so we think maybe it's something along that magnitude that's been traveling closer to us.
Yeah.
It's still, I think it's still beyond where we can actually, like detect it. But
Well, that's interesting you say that, because people talk about this pole shift that's happening right now, that the poles are shifting a little bit each year. And then we've heard in the past that major pole shifts, when you're talking about the precession of the equinoxes and some of these things where the electromagnetic field of the earth changes. Right now in Ohio, how many times, Stone, have people been able to drive out of the city and see the northern lights in Ohio? And they're like, oh, beautiful lights. Like, no, that means that the electromagnetic system of the earth, like, it's almost like having your shields go down. And those are cosmic rays that are coming in. And, in the northern part of that's where the electromagnetic field is the weakest. So that's why the further you go north, you can see the northern. We shouldn't be seeing that in Ohio. So it's funny you're saying that, because I have been noticing people talking about these pole shifts, the electromagnetic field of the earth. It's really a topic that's coming up. And could this be some of the climate change, causing the climate change that we're seeing as well? It's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I know the northern lights, we see them in Maine every once in a while, but we've had two like major, like the sky was completely red.
Yeah.
And that's in some of the stories and the prophecies, this red sky, like blood red. And like everyone's like, oh, it's so beautiful, and taking pictures and sharing, and I'm feeling so spiritual. But yeah, what is actually causing that? That might not be so beautiful.